You know, because why not?
No, Eggman Nega is...
Good old Eggman Nega.
Eggman Nega is either extra-dimensional Eggman or future a descendant Eggman, depending on which lore you want to go with.
They have retconned Eggman Nega to being Eggman's descendant from the future. Because due to that whole Ken Penders kerfuffle, was him... and I need to explain this because this leads to my theories and shit. I feel like it's not going to be Stone because you brought up the UK Sonic comic. In that comic, Eggman is not the one that built Metal Sonic. It was Eggman's assistant in that comic. So I feel like they might actually have that character be the villain.
It's the future where Stone is now Eggman, quotations, and he needs to get a hold of past Sonic.
I didn't realize the Neo Metal Sonic had Eggman's assistant creating.
Remember, if we're doing timeline...
Look, guys, it's another Bio Lizard boss.
Hey, hey, this is a redemption for the 3DS version.
3DS version wasn't that bad.
If we're doing timeline stuff in this franchise, remember Blaze.
Oh God, why does it have human teeth?
Yeah, Blaze is cool and all that, guys. Keep them time dudes out of this. Keep the time dudes.
Anyway, what I was
We
going
ain't worried
to...
about him.
It has the
We ain't worried
SA2
about
mechanics.
Silver or Blaze. Get out of here.
Anyway, what I was going to say, I feel like Stone isn't going...
You could not do this in classic generations.
Well, one, unlike the stage in Adventure 2, there's not a gap in the floor.
No, I mean, I want you to understand. These are the controls I've wanted in a boost game forever. These feel almost as good, if not as good, as SA2 controls.
Anyway, was the movie? I feel like...
Yeah, I don't think SA2 controls good.
Okay, well, okay. So when I say that, I mean when you play boost games, most boost games are slippy. You can't do your like side to side movement is not that good. The games are designed to run on straightaways, right?
Yes.
And so your controls are only really good on straightaways. The only boost game that kind of breaks that is Forces, and Forces only does an okay job at it. SA1 and 2 have much better, like, you know, just like general movement.
Anyway, was the movie and shit. I feel like they're not going to have...
In the sense of the, you know, specifically in the sense of the, you know, just kind of like 3D platforming movement.
Yes.
This game has movement like that good, but it's a boost game.
As for the movie... funny.
What I was going to say was the movie. I feel like Stone isn't going to be Eggman because Stone, like, especially in the third movie, it's like he doesn't really entirely seem like he's evil, so I feel like they're not going to have him...
That plot twist. They think Stone wants Sonic for something bad.
Well, that...
In reality, he wants Sonic for something good.
Well, that, and again, if we are genuinely, unironically taking something from the fucking, like, British Sonic comic, in the British Sonic comic, Eggman is not the one that created Metal Sonic, it was his assistant Grimer, which was a character created exclusively for the UK comic because they thought they could use Snively, but they couldn't. So they had to quickly make him someone else.
All I heard is that homie's gonna take off the mask, and you know, Sonic's gonna be like Stone. He's gonna be like, please, fuck me.
I also feel like the other reason they're going to possibly not do it's some other weird type of Eggman replacement is, like all things in Sonic, it goes back to Ken Penders. Basically, because the Archie comic had killed Eggman off by, I think it was issue 50, because they needed Eggman to come back and they wanted to try to line up more with the games. They brought back an Eggman from an alternate dimension that had basically turned himself into a robot, and he used a spare body that conveniently looked like the
Bullet Hell right now?
They can.
I don't know what the game was.
What do you?
I think you're just playing Bullet Hell.
I think you have to homing attack up them.
I know you have to homing hack up something, but you know, it's not letting me do.
I think when the cat...
Oh, I think I know. Yeah. Maybe? No, you
This is
Yeah, I think maybe you're just playing bullet hell right now, bro. I think you're just, having a shootout. Yeah, you're just having a shootout. You just...
I feel like there was a way
There
to
is
make...
a way to do it. I've seen it done.
No, I was gonna say, I feel like there was a way to make that go faster. But any way, like, because of the whole Ken Penders writing the Archie comic for so long, and they were in the Archie comic after a certain point replaced the Archie Eggman with
Probably the best version
Yeah.
of
it was the one Eggman. I feel like to avoid potential more later kerfuffles with Ken Penders, they would probably not like try to not have something replace Eggman, because I feel like that is also why they retconned Eggman Nega to being a descendant of Eggman and not from an alternate dimension, because he technically was the first one to have a version of Eggman from an alternate dimension. Also, the Lego...
Also, I will say, aside from SA2, controls really kind of stayed the same, more or less, from SA2. And when we hit boost, the first boost game that actually controlled decently was probably this game. Not like Generation. Because it took them a minute to actually get boost control down to feel mostly okay. And then, they made Lost World, which controls okay for what it does, but it's Lost World. And then somehow ruined all of the controls in Forces.
Lost World is. Ow. Oh.
It's you.
Black Doom.
Who is not voiced by Sean Chanel.
They can't get him in this economy.
He auditioned. And then he didn't realize he didn't get the part because he thought he was just auditioning as like a courtesy. Until he saw the first trailer for the game and was like, that's not me.
To me,
like, that apparently...
Pikachu face.
To me, like-
Pikachu face. What?
to be fair,
Goku Pikachu face.
To be fair, everyone's made a joke about it's like Black Doom has such a like filter over his voice.
It
It's
doesn't
like
matter.
yeah, exactly.
But Sean, it's still funny that Sean Chamel auditioned
Yeah.
and then realized he just thought he was gonna get the part until literally he saw the trailer and was like, that's not me.
Yeah, Shadow, you beat up that starfish.
Don't worry, there's another starfish.
The black arms are kind of implied to be a hive mind, so there's like several copies of them. And in the Archie comics, they created a clone of Shadow, I think it was called Eclipse. You think fucking Tyrios is the edgiest shit ever? You should see that shit from the Archie comics. Especially because with it being a, like, clone of Shadow, I guess we could, if we wanted to have this be the most edgy thing ever, say that's technically, like, Shadow's alien brother? Question mark?
Man.
The Archie comics got weird.
You seem to be missing out on the other big factor of all of this, guys.
Dude Surf?
Which is not about what's going to be in South 4.
There's only like
What's going to be in
only
Shadow
like
the
3 more
Hedgehog
movies.
1. That's what's important. That's what's...
In the movie, they said Shadow was found from a black meteorite. They've set up the black arms in the movie continuity.
telling you, baby. Shadow the Hedgehog 1.
So we're surfing.
We're going to put Omega in there.
Doom Surf.
That's probably going to be the movie where we introduce boobs.
Like, when they, in the movie, instead of having Shadow be, like, the ultimate life form, because they said was found from a black meteor, I was like, holy shit, they're putting the pieces for that now.
Man, what do you mean? That's the plot.
Omega, how many sands in the
Also,
desert?
putting this in here, I am convinced they decided to commit to putting this in here when Project 06 started taking off. Everyone was talking about it, like, we can capitalize on this and make the best official version of this stage. I've heard nothing but compliments on this stage.
And I have played this game.
You say,
I have played this game,
I can
What?
say 65 seconds.
What? I have not actually played.
He played the multiplayer battle mode
And
in an anger management class.
Yes, you've told us
In
that
an
before.
anger management class. It's so ironic. The only Sonic game they had there was this one.
We only had 2 games for the 360, and 06 was one of
The
them.
most anger-inducing
Eh.
one.
And
Even if you like it, it's so bad because you're like, I want to like this game, but it's this game.
but you can like it now. Project 06 exists.
Yeah, you can unofficially like it now because Project 06 exists.
The official, unofficial fix.
Hey, you got
What-
we
does
got
anyone know
boys
the
out
funny
here.
thing
I don't
about
know,
that?
Sean. Remember how you said new Marvel? Guess what? We're playing in a tournament.
You know,
We are playing modded Marvel Infinite in tournament over actual
you know what's
Marvel.
hilarious about Project 06 though?
Are you gonna bring up the fact that apparently the guy who made it never played 06?
Yeah. It's so wild, isn't it?
Hey, I mean,
He literally just said, "Oh, this is what everyone hates about it," and just game designed his way through it.
Yes.
that's how you do it.
Because 06 was never a
How
bad
do I
game.
make?
It was
How
just-
do I make
The
Man
level-
X Command
The
Mission
people who
better?
looked at
I just find
I know
out
there were people who tried to
talking
say
bad
the level design in 06 was also bad. I like that Project 06 kind of proves that
Yeah,
wrong. Because I was
When
one
we
of the proponents of 06 has good level design. It has good things about it. It's just hidden under the fact
What?
that you're playing 06.
When we got to Crisis City,
made an intensive game that just wasn't as hard as SMT.
When we-
put Persona isms in it.
when we got to Crisis City in the regular generations, I went on a spiel for
That part will be up later.
I went on a spiel for a minute about how I feel like 06, while it is a bad game, on some level is kind of overhated now because I feel like more games that came out after it are far worse
Like
for
Forces.
I'm not even just talking about Sonic, I'm just talking about games in general.
Hold on now.
And
Let's
And-
not get crazy
I
now.
get crazy now.
And one of the things I pointed out was that Project 06 shows that most of 06's level design was actually pretty good, because one of the only substantially changed parts is the ball puzzle. Most other levels are not touched.
DMC4 is a pretty solid game.
You mean half a game?
DMC4 is not a bad game.
Go.
DMC4
Go right
also
there.
DMC4 is
Go right
also
there.
DMC4 is also nowhere near as bad for any-
DMC4 is the best half a game ever.
DMC4 is a solid game even despite its downfalls there.
Yeah.
Now that we have an official version of Devil May Cry 3 with a style and weapon switching, I can't call DMC4 a good game.
DMC4 is still a decent enough game.
Again,
It's not the best game because it does have
that is my
its
thing
flaws,
here.
but I mean
That's
it's
cool.
it's not
But
no
Sonic 06 is
Sonic,
a whole game.
Devil May Cry 4.
The whole game is oof. In the whole game.
Because it was. Because it.
Wait, did you just call Sonic 06 a whole game? Because I think that's a little bit presumptuous because calling it a full game okay. So, Devil May Cry 4 is a full game, alright? It is just not a full vision. It is a game that we made the best with what we ended up with. Sonic 06 is a game that is, you could argue, isn't even out of beta upon release.
Sonic 06 was a game where the Japanese and American sides of Sega. Japan wanted to target the PS3, America wanted to target the Xbox, and they wanted to get a game out that holiday.
Not just that, the team that they had making the Wii version, when they looked at the Wii specs and realized it wasn't HD, that turned into Secret Rings. So they cut a portion of the team off and they went to go work on Secret Rings.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. I don't really understand that situation.
What situation?
Really, because of the fact of the matter, like I've told people for years, except today. In today's world, not so much. But before today's time, most shit came out for both consoles
Look at the
anyway.
Mox Beat section.
Because unless we are talking about actual exclusives for Nintendo games, most shit came out for both consoles
Yes.
anyway.
They didn't have the Wii specs. That's why. That's
Well, I don't know
why
you
the.
would make anything for the Wii anyway with that bad remote control.
Well, because this was before the Wii came out. This was in 2005 and shit. So this was when things were still in development.
Because even if you like motion controls, you still have games on that console. You say, hand me a fucking controller.
Also, the reason Kingdom Valley was one of the stages, I believe that's the stage in 06 where Mephiles actually copies Shadow's appearance.
It won't be till like 2075 when I'm probably actually going to be the old man talking about, I remember when controller was better than motion.
I have seen people unironically excited about Mephiles in this game, which is just wild.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're now at a point where the Sonic discussion is not dominated by anchored conversation.
To go back to what Brian was confused about, and at the time, given their decisions, this makes sense when you explain it this way. Sega was one of the first companies to basically be offered development kits for upcoming consoles. But they got their development kits without knowing what anything could do, especially Nintendo's upcoming Wii system. So they were slightly more familiar with the HD systems, but they didn't know what the Wii could do. They just assumed Nintendo was going to make a system about as powerful as a PS3 and started making a game off that incredibly wrong assumption.
And then when they got the specs,
you know what that sounds like? I'm gonna give you two perspectives on that one. Perspective number one is the game design perspective. You know what that's called? I make whatever I want, and if it doesn't run on the Wii, guess what? It's not gonna be on the Wii. Now I'm gonna give you the business perspective, and the business perspective is look like we're not making shit for the Wii.
except because the Wii trounced the PS3 and 360 in its opening years in terms of sales.
Why am I gonna make a game that's probably going to be either mid or absolute ass for something I have no information about?
Because
when I could literally just make it for something I have info about, make the money off of that, and then when I get info on said thing, actually sit there and say, alright guys, y'all make a Wii game.
Well, what's actually funny about that, because of the split...
Part of the biggest reason why most game developers, most publishers, Microsoft spending all of this money on all of these studios and not being able to support them is because we spend money on shit, not realizing how bad of a business decision
what's
they are.
funny with 06, and this is the other mess, which a lot of people forget about, the Xbox 360 released in 2005, so Sega was more familiar with the Xbox 360 when they were also given a PS3 dev kit, and this isn't Sega's fault. Whenever any company was given a PS3 dev kit, they would ask Sony for the specs, and Sony would literally go, sorry, that's a trade secret, but how can we develop for your console if you won't give us the specs?
Again,
figure it out.
Again, business decision, we're not making shit for the PS3.
So...
people can get mad about it, but I'm not doing it when it's literally going to run at like 14 frames per second.
You say business decision, but like I said, if you were going by business decision, especially early on in the system's life,
I don't know what the Nintendo Wii is going to do. It doesn't matter what it's going to do. I know what I have. Business decisions are made off of the present, and the present is I don't have information on the Wii. I'm not making shit for it.
That way of thinking is a fine one, that you shouldn't just magically target a console you know nothing about. So
tell that to fucking Square.
I think it's a pretty sound way of thinking. If I don't know nothing about it, why am I? That's why there's a bunch of games that still run on, guess what? The PS4, the PS3. Do you know how many games came out that were for the PS3 and the PS4?
Yes.
You wanna know why they came out for the PS3 and the PS4? Because we didn't know what the fucking PS4 was, probably.
Well,
And we said, I'm not making something that's not gonna run on the PS3.
well, there's
But probably
also
not gonna run on the PS4.
well, in a modern sense, first of all, the PS4 still has a huge install base, and second of all, the PS5 is so expensive to develop for that a lot of companies are like, we can just target the PS4 because it's cheaper and easier.
Again,
That's why
business decisions.
That's why the modern like Marvel vs. Capcom collection and other similar collections Capcom has been making its PS4 and Switch.
Doesn't matter anyway. These are dirt old games.
That's why they're not wasting the money making it native for PS5.
Like I said, these are dirt old games. It doesn't matter anyway. The people buying those collections are probably the people that played those collections when they came out. 9 times out of 10. You know, the fact that somebody would, you know, there are people in the FGC space that probably bought this game, have never played Marvel 2, and said, I'm gonna get into Marvel 2. And then they ran into Justin Wong, and they said, I'm not getting into fucking Marvel 2.
My favorite thing about the Marvel 2 my favorite thing about the Marvel 2, they patched the Juggernaut glitch back in.
Yes, because they wanted to keep the validity. If the Capcom has started listening for once, I don't know why people act like that's not what's happening.
Can I just point out, I'm loving these stage links.
Like, you think about it. Then what did they do? They made Street Fighter V, pissed everybody off because they were like, this sucks. This game's bad. I don't really like it. It doesn't have the variety that we were looking for. It's basically aggro or bust. You know, if it's not rushed down, it just gets washed. And so, literally, what did they do? They made Street Fighter 6. They gave you defensive.
Oh, the
They
boy!
gave you the characters you wanted. They gave you the design you wanted. It has almost every single mechanic from every other Street Fighter in it. And then they said, you want to know what we're going to do? We're going to support the community. $1 million profit.
It's Big the motherfucking cat.
Someone at Capcom is listening.
Your name's Shadow.
I don't know who they are. I don't know why they started listening. They're listening.
You say someone at Capcom's listening. Remember, at the Game Awards, they announced a new Okami and Onimusha.
Again, someone at Capcom's
Hey,
listening.
talk about how wild it is that Hideki Kamiya left Platinum Games to go back to Capcom.
No,
he-
stop
this
reporting
man
it that way.
This man feels such a type of way about
No,
this.
his
He
new
formed his own
studio
studio.
is independent. They are contracting him.
Yes.
He is working with Capcom, not for Capcom.
Yes.
Everyone is reporting that he's working for Capcom and that they own his studio. That's wrong. His new studio is an independent studio. They're just... What? It's time for the question of the day and my overall thoughts on the topic. So, anyway, how many of you think the hate for Sonic 06 is overblown? Because realistically, the problem with that game is the fact that it was rushed. The game is broken because it was rushed. The levels are not that bad outside of one or two kind of bizarre and infamous things, like that ball puzzle with Silver. But outside of a couple of weird instances, all the problems come from the fact that the game was rushed. And I do feel like a good game is basically hidden under the mountains of rushed and terrible programming, because the one guy making a unofficial remake basically proves if you improve on the physics and a couple of other problems, the game is actually fine. So I think a lot of the hatred is generally unwarranted. Yes, it was a bad game, and it being bad was driven by the fact that they did rush the game to market. But when you get past the weird, horrible physics and other corners that they cut, the actual game is not that bad. And I also feel, even in its broken state, it's quite quaint compared to the microtransaction season pass bullshit that would basically end up becoming the norm in the games industry like 10 years later. So, in my opinion, I get the hatred. I just think it is kind of quaint looking back on this game, and this game is not nearly the worst game ever by any metric anymore, because I would argue that the hellscape we currently exist in is far worse, with broken games, microtransactions, season passes, DRM. Anyway, you can leave your thoughts, opinions, and answers in the comments, or you can leave them on social media. All of my social media links, as well as my Discord links, are in the video description. Now, as always, I need to be a shill for a minute. If you subscribe to the channel, and if you follow me on social media, that really helps our communities grow. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope I will see you all next time. So, as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody. I hope you come back someday. See you later.